Joining me now, Occupy Democrats executive editor Grant Stern. Also with me, Project 21 ambassador and author of Restoring Education in America, Priscilla Rahn. Grant, I'm going to start with you. Bove's vetting process included 3 whistleblower complaints against him. Could those have been politically motivated, though? And does it even matter since every Democrat senator would have voted against his confirmation no matter what?
Well, that's a fact. Democrats were not going to vote for Donald Trump's personal lawyer to have a lifetime perch on the federal bench. It was never going to happen. This was about swaying Republican votes to prevent an injustice from being placed onto the federal bench for a lifetime. The man is going to be in New Jersey, and he's going to oversee anything that comes out of Bedminster, apparently. And the fact is that the whistleblower complaints were squelched until just before the vote was held, according to Mark Zaid and whistleblower aide, who released a statement today. It's a fact that Emil Bove has an enormous walking conflict of interest in the White House, and if anything comes up Trump-related, he absolutely is going to have to recuse himself. But there's no ironclad law that makes it happen in the federal judiciary. It can be very difficult to get a judge to recuse, even if they really should recuse. And so that's what makes this a threat to democracy in the state of New Jersey and a threat to justice.
Okay. Priscilla, Cory Booker is mad again, yelling at his colleagues on the Senate floor in a fiery speech. I want to play a clip for you.
We're going to stand together. If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose. But if we stand united, if we stand strong, if we stand with other people, if we tell with a chorus of conviction in America what this president is doing is wrong, if we stand up and speak that way, dear God, we will win.
He's definitely mad. And I see Grant nodding his head. Priscilla, I want you to comment on whether Democrats can ever get on the same page, and maybe comment on what Grant just said about this new nominee who's been approved.
Well, this is politics, and he's going to get approved. President Trump's going to get his people into office, and it's going to balance out the corruption we've been dealing with under Joe Biden. And who's listening to Cory Booker? I mean, he's been screaming and yelling. He did his 23-hour rampage before, and no one's listening to him when he talks that way. He has nothing to say, and he's just looking for sound bites.
That's false. He has a lot to say.
Go ahead, Grant.
He has a lot to say. Look, Cory Booker is right. Democrats are internally divided, and for the wrong reasons. He's calling out some very specific people. I mean, I could say I know a couple of the people he's talking about off the top of my head just from imagining, not by direct contact. And he's absolutely right. Democrats need to stand for something, or they'll fall for anything.
Okay, but
Well,
Priscilla,
as
it doesn't look like they
black-
have any leadership. They can't figure any of this stuff out. They can't get on the same page.
No, and the Democrat Party has nothing to offer the black community. They never have. So he can go on a rampage.
Boy, that's a
all he
whopper.
wants. And so I'm speaking as someone who is a descendant of enslaved Africans and who knows the history of our country and the history of the Democrat Party. Nothing's really changed and nothing's new under the sun. So he can go down to D.C. and speak as long as he wants and yell and scream and give those crazy eyes. But, you know, it's not going to be effective. And that's, at the end of the day, what he's fighting is the effectiveness of this Trump administration.
Grant, I don't know how you defend the party at this point. Certainly,
I would just like to ask
Booker.
Priscilla to tell me who represents African-American interests in the Trump cabinet. What member of the Trump cabinet does that? Is there any African-American representation in the vast number of cabinet-level positions that Donald Trump chose?
See, that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. We don't care about skin color. We care about freedom. We care about the Constitution.
That's right. Democrats choose
It
qualified
doesn't matter.
people.
Don't talk
But
over
they're
me.
also
It
people
doesn't
of color.
matter if there's a black person or a white person or Asian person in the administration. What I care about is freedom and someone who's going to stand up for the Constitution. The Democrat Party has failed election after election. Their policies have failed the black community. And so that's what I'm standing on.
Okay, well,
Right, no
I want you guys to
representation
stick
is
around
something
for a
for you.
moment.
Representation of someone who stands for the Constitution and my freedoms and will get out of the way, that's for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important. Meanwhile, the probe of a possible cover-up of former President Joe Biden's mental decline continues, with Steve Ricchetti, the former deputy chief of staff to President Biden, testifying behind closed doors in the House Oversight Committee's investigation into the 46th president's mental acuity. I want to get to the full story now from congressional correspondent Kilmany Dukart, and then back to you guys.
Steve Richetti's been providing the House Oversight Committee with hours of testimony as part of their investigation. He's been of keen interest to the panel because he's considered to be a member of Biden's trusted inner circle, not only making legislative decisions, but also acting as a gatekeeper, shutting down reports and sources that questioned President Biden's mental acuity, a revelation that has been now acknowledged by left-leaning outlets.
This disaster that happened with Joe Biden running for re-election and then the cover-up of what he was like behind the scenes, what Robert Hur saw, was orchestrated by Joe and Jill and Hunter and Mike Donnellan and Steve Ricchetti. And there are other people to a lesser extent, but those 5 people are the most responsible.
Ricchetti arriving this morning for his closed-door deposition, facing tough questions from Republicans who view him as a so-called insider who strategized ways to minimize the president's age-related struggles. Few have been talking. Biden's former deputy chief of staff, Annie Tomasini, the former First Lady's chief of staff, Anthony Bernal, and Biden's former physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, all invoked their Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate themselves. That's left Republicans like Senator Bernie Moreno with even more questions.
We really just don't know. Like it's a black box, but what we do know is that anecdotally, for example, when Speaker Johnson asked him about why President Biden banned LNG exports, he said, "I didn't do that." But he had signed a ban on LNG exports, which was a catastrophically bad idea. So we do have to get to the bottom of who was in charge, who was pulling strings, and who was keeping this information.
Well, it remains to be seen whether anything Ricchetti says in that meeting room behind me will be enough to move the needle on the GOP's investigation. Back to you.
Kilmany, thank you. Priscilla, we have every right to presume Ricchetti would know the status of Biden's health back in 2024 when the infamous auto pen was used. Can we also presume Ricchetti may have provided useful testimony since multiple ex-Biden staffers have pled the Fifth?
Yeah, he knows exactly what happened. In fact, the American people know. We watched it. So you can't gaslight us into thinking that the auto pen wasn't used. And it was abused, actually, under President Biden. So I'm just waiting for all of the testimony to be finished and for the reports to come out. And I think it's going to show that there are people keeping secrets and they're lying to the American people.
Grant, how can we ever trust Democrats when we see this basic plot to cover up Biden's decline, when we see what lengths they went to hide the fact that Biden couldn't really run the country by himself because his mental fitness was clearly in decline?
Well, let's start by going with this baseline. No one man runs the entire country all by themselves. They all have help, including Donald J. Trump.
Here we go.
Okay, Donald Trump has advisors. Donald Trump has chiefs of staff. Donald Trump signs things. He does. But let's talk about his mental health because he's actually got his finger on the nuclear button.
No. We're talking about Joe Biden's mental health, not the president of the current president. Let's talk about Joe Biden and the cover-up that clearly took place. Focus on that for a moment, Grant. If you want any credibility, focus on this guy who keeps falling down. Focus on that for a moment.
Let's talk about it. The House is doing their job, as they should. They're overseeing the presidency. And let's talk about cover-ups. The biggest cover-up in American history is happening in the White House right now. The Jeffrey Epstein files are being hidden, and we know it.
That's ridiculous.
Donald Trump went on television
Priscilla,
today and said
I want
that
you to weigh in on
the EU
this.
is paying us $500 million, and it's not happening. Like, I'm telling you that we need to look at the current occupant's mental health more importantly than the past occupant because he's the one in charge today, the last time I checked. And maybe I'm wrong. Priscilla, am I wrong about that? Let me know.
Every day I wake up, I am so happy President Trump is in office. And I will say that we need to definitely know who has signed those approvals for judges, for those folks that got off in their criminal, the criminal things that they've done. We don't know for sure if Biden even knew what was going on. I don't have faith in the people that worked in the Biden administration to tell us the truth. When they're all pleading the fifth, that means they have something to hide. They need to go in there and be honest with the American people and tell the truth about what they were asked to do or asked to cover up.
But you were good with Donald Trump pleading the fifth all the many times he did, right?
Grant, you realize that while there may be multiple people involved in running an administration, there's only one person who's actually allowed to sign bills and pardons. And we now know that Biden, in many cases, was checked out and someone else was running that auto pen. I mean, that certainly seems to be the case.
There's some allegations, but there's not really a widespread conspiracy that anybody's uncovered. They're still investigating it. You're jumping to a big conclusion here, but I don't see any of the evidence, right? It's just how it is. I mean, do you think the doctor really knew what was going on with the auto pen? I don't think so.
Well, I think we can all
sure
see
the
the
doctor
evidence
was
right in front of our
asked if
face.
The doctor was
Even though
asked if he to keep secrets about the wellness of the president, and he's pleading the fifth.
He's
That
the
should not
president's
happen.
doctor. Doctors have to keep people's health histories, like, confidential. So, I mean, it puts
That's
him in a bad
different for the president of the
circumstance because he
United
could lose
States.
his professional license if he talked to Congress, right? So, I mean,
think that's different
a
for
difficult
this
place.
investigation.
No, he
The
could lose his
wellness of-
medical
Grant,
license. It happens all the time.
I'm sorry.
Grant, I feel
Rick.
for you because I don't know how you can defend the party that seems lost. I don't know how you can defend a former administration that was covering up so much. Unfortunately, though, we are out of time. I would like to invite you both back again, though, to try this one more time. Thank you both for joining me on the Leventhal Report.